Hi, I'm Fabio Piras, and I'm a judge for Junk Kouture London. I grew up partly in Italy and in Switzerland, so that's my split kind of identity. That's my split language, and so therefore there's not really a home. I came to London a long time ago, 1985. It was for a weekend, and I'm still here. It's funny because my first memory of finding my love for fashion certainly doesn't come from my family, but it came from television, and it was a afternoon program for, at the time, in a binary world for ladies, called Aujourd'hui Madame. It was on French TV, and twice a year they would review the shows in Paris. So my first love of fashion came from the classic designers such as Saint Laurent, Pierre Cardin at the time, and I was madly in love with Paco Rabanne. I thought that was like completely incredibly super futuristic. So I would skip school twice a year that afternoon to actually really view the couture shows. From anywhere. I think as a designer, you need to have your eyes open, you need to be attentive to anything that is around you. I mean, that's where inspiration comes from. The minute you start looking at, or the minute you start searching for inspiration, I think that's when it just never comes. It just needs to be awake, just see things. Well, I would start to say that it is a privilege because you are in a world that is constantly moving, constantly inspiring you. It's also extremely frustrating at times because it can be really full on. So it's intense, dramatic at times, ridiculous, frustrating, yes, but I mean, I think that, at the end of the day, it's creative, and creativity saves the day, always. Art saves the day, anything artistic saves the day. So, of course, it's a privilege. What's my main goal at Central St. Martin's? Well, I think my main goal, I don't have a goal. My main goal is to, in a way, to safeguard the level of education, which I think is really important, knowledge for students. So it's not just about be creative, it's about also understanding the context of your creativity, understanding where it comes from. And you need to know a little bit about the rules, a little bit about the background of that inspires your work in order for you to disrupt it, in order for you to disrespect then the rules, in order for you to break the rules, to move them forward. And that, to me, that's really, really important. And I think that I really want my students to be free in terms of what they want to express. And I don't care whether, some students might be extremely creative, some students might be less creative, but more business-minded, for instance, more commercial. And I think all that is absolutely fine. And it needs to be contextualized. And that's where it becomes extraordinary. So my motto is, you never will be commercial if you're not creative, basically. I think you can only motivate a creative block by discussing with the student, understanding why there is no inspiration, why there is no engagement with creativity, which is a very, very painful situation to be for a creative person. So I think that actually, a boosting talk doesn't do it. Generally, a boosting talk would probably not the ideal. I think it's about understanding the person, understanding what puts them in that situation, and also not making them feel guilty for that. I mean, no, it's okay. I mean, we all have blocks. Just maybe enjoy another side of your day, another side of your life, and then come back. I feel excited because it's so out of my normal remit in a way, but it is also very much part of it because it is about, in a way, being a judge is not necessarily we're not a tribunal, we're not a creative tribunal. We're just that we're there to mentor, to give feedback, to encourage, and being a judge is also to have the opportunity to be inspired by what we see. And I think with Junk Kouture, from what I've seen and what I suspect I will be seeing, I think there's a lot of inspiration to be confronted with. So I'm super excited. It is exciting because to me it's a mystery. They are a mystery. Not necessarily I would claim that I understand them, but that's, to me, that's a positive rather than a negative. There are different cultures, but I mean, there are, but I think that the concerns of designers, the concerns of kids, the concerns of the new generation, in a way, are very much similar, and they will be expressed in different ways, I think. I mean, I expect them to have the freedom to express themselves in the way they want and to raise those questions and bring those issues forward in a creative and artistic way, and in the same way as I would expect the British kids to do it. But then if we talk about fashion, then maybe I would advise the Italian contestants maybe to not to think fashion. The difference between British fashion and maybe Italian fashion is that Italy has an industry that is very prominent in fashion, and therefore there are assumptions about what fashion needs to look like. And I think that if you are a British kid, then not necessarily you have that background, and that's why you're freer. In 3 words, it's a difficult one because actually 3 words it's very, very specific, but I think it's artistic, meaningful, and it's about identity. So artistic, meaningful identity. The biggest misconception of the fashion industry today is to still believe that the fashion industry can sell goods for the sake of selling goods. I think that we are in a world where meaning is important. So therefore, going back to what fashion started with, which is making incredible pieces, unique pieces, meaningful pieces, pieces that stay in time, and not just products that are there for easy consumption, especially at the high end of fashion. Because if one not necessarily condones or accepts fast fashion, but fast fashion as a raison d'etre in terms of price point for a broader public, but high fashion at that level of price to be so badly consumed, then maybe it's a word that the fashion industry really it's a word that the fashion industry really can't at this stage still. It's not prepared to leave, and I think it's a big misconception to believe that your audience, your customer base, actually is still willing to follow that. Who's the future of fashion? Someone who then understands just that. Someone who understands that maybe fashion is about craft. Someone who understands that it's about your statement. It's about a message you want to give to the world that is a genuine message and not a commercial one. Someone who puts themselves out there with their fashion. Therefore, your fashion is you. And you need to stand by it. It needs to be about values and about applied values. Who are you? That's the someone. From a mentor, the best advice I ever received was, why don't you do your own thing? And that's what I did. But to me, fashion means everything, because that's what I do. That's what I never asked myself the question on why should I do fashion. I just did it. I mean, I never was a person that actually wanted to make clothes necessarily. I just like fashion. I like the image of fashion. I like the attitude of fashion. So I love talking fashion. I'm interested in the subject. So yeah, that's what I like about it. Absolutely, but that's why I came to London. I mean, when I was a kid, and when I was a teenager, living in the middle of Switzerland, I mean, that's hardly a place where you're going to discover fashion. I mean, so I mean, I think that whether you are aware of it or not, I think what you want is this kind of vibe, the attitude, people that have a look, people that inspire you, people that elevate you actually. Because I think that, I don't know, I mean, talking for myself really mainly, but I mean, I think that in general, people that are into fashion find a form of elevation, you know. So it's a kind of superior you that you might never be. It's a fantasy. Fashion is a fantasy, and but you need to make that fantasy become real, and that's the challenge. And you need to make it become again meaningful. It's like I use that word on purpose because it's like art. It has to have a meaning. It has to have like whether it's understandable or not, but it needs to have a meaning. It's an action that has a meaning. Well, it's the base of everything, really. I mean, what Junk Kouture asks kids to do is really it is the foundation of what then fashion would be. It's about having something to say. It's about expressing yourself. It's about finding ways of doing so, and you do it through clothes, which then it's actually the most powerful way of doing it because it's on you. It absorbs you. So therefore, you become your statement. I want to see follies, meaningful follies. Follies because I think that it's a beautiful word. I mean, like a folly is something that is unreasonable. So it's something that is, again, it's a fantasy. So, and then Junk Kouture asks to put a meaning to it. So therefore, the meaning can be anything. You don't have to be political. You don't have to be heavily led by some mission. But I think it's about seeing, expression. It is important. As I said, I mean, expression is important for kids. I think that whether it's explicit or not with Junk Kouture, there's an agenda that actually kids can decide to put forward. And I really love this idea that I think when you're a kid, you can struggle with a lot of things. One of them could be your identity, for instance. And what a better place to actually express that, really. Because what Junk Kouture does, it just gives kids a stage and then a brief, which is through recycling stuff, getting junk, whatever you want, just create that thing, say what you want to say, and you have the excuse that at the end of the day it's a stage, so you're in a safe place. I mean, I wish I had that. I wish I had Junk Kouture when I was a kid. There were so many things you could not express. It has to be something that you can stand by. It is something that you can that you feel responsible for. You can't, as a creative person, you can't not be responsible. So whatever you do has an imprint, and I think it's important to educate kids, and we are. I mean, schools do that now, and it's wonderful to see kids very, very engaged with that. So whatever you do leaves a mark. Whatever you do is there. So give that mark importance, because then if it stays, then it will stay for a reason and not just for something that is dumped there. So in a way, I mean, it's a very simple way, simplistic way of talking about sustainability, but it isn't. It's about what impact what you do, what is the impact of what you do. And I think that needs to be always in somebody's head, and it shouldn't be fake. It shouldn't be constructed. It should be something that is really natural. It's about, why do I do it, first of all, and how do I do it? and how does it exist after. Don't overstyle it. Let your creation speak for itself. I think that's important because sometimes, what designers do, what creative people do, is they're trying to put as much as they can on stage. So prioritize your creation, bring it up, and try to be as concise as possible in terms of message. It needs to just be that message. Also, maybe just trying to bring, in terms of staging, I don't know, a music or a performance that is more of a question mark than something that is in tune with what you've done. So try not to have a narrative that is always about the same thing, trying to disrupt the narrative, because that will grab your audience attention. Have a question mark, bring that question mark forward. Well, I think it seems quite a natural progression, don't you? So yes.